In a quiet corner of an old archive, where the dim light softens the edges of forgotten histories, some subjects ask to be approached with unhurried attention. There is a calm that settles in such places, a sense that knowledge reveals itself more clearly when no one tries to pull it forward. So it is with the study of weapons shaped not by steel alone, but by the will that flows through them. The history of force-imbued weaponry begins not with metallurgy or craftsmanship, but with the silent discipline of those capable of channeling power through the body as naturally as others draw breath. When the first warriors learned to bind their thoughts into the edge of a blade, the force sword emerged as an extension of intent rather than mere steel. Its structure, though seemingly conventional, concealed an inner architecture designed to carry psychic resonance. The balance of the weapon depended not only on its mass, but on the stability of the mind that wielded it, for the energy coursing through the blade altered the behavior of metal and air alike. In battle, the sword did not cut so much as separate, its edge guided by focused will that dissolved resistance on contact. This fusion of discipline and violence reshaped the dynamics of close-quarters combat, shifting emphasis from muscle to concentration. Fighters trained with it understood that hesitation disrupted the weapon's harmonic field and that clarity strengthened it, producing decisive strikes capable of splitting armor, bone, and the invisible tension that binds opponents together. Yet, once such a weapon existed, its limitations became the catalyst for new forms, shaped by the demands of those who fought where pressure was greatest, and where raw force needed direction as much as sharpness. As the sword established the foundation of focused psychic blades, the need for a heavier, more decisive instrument emerged from battles where sheer pressure outweighed finesse, leading to the shaping of the force axe, a weapon whose purpose was not merely to end a confrontation, but to collapse the opposition's resolve by its very presence. Its heft carried channels that stabilized the surge of power running through it, distributing the psychic load across reinforced segments of alloy so that the wielder could direct bursts of force into the moment of impact. The axe did not rely on the simple arc of a swing. Instead, its weight combined with concentrated will generated a crushing wave that distorted armor plates before the blade even made contact. Crews who witnessed it on the front lines often described a subtle trembling in the air around it, as if the weapon displaced space itself in anticipation of the strike. Within close formations, its function extended beyond destruction, influencing enemy movements through the oppressive pressure emanating from its energized head, creating hesitation where momentum once lay. This effect, though invisible, altered the geometry of battle by softening clusters of resistance and opening paths for infantry to advance. But where the axe transformed pressure into a breach, other situations required stability, the controlled flow of power rather than its violent discharge. And from this need emerged a weapon that served as a conduit rather than a hammer, reshaping the relationship between wielder and the forces they channeled. Where the axe embodied compression and shock, there were moments in battle when the wielder needed not an edge, but a stabilizing spine for the mind itself. And the Force Staff emerged as the natural answer to those demands. Its length served as a regulator for psychic flow, allowing power to move without surges, guiding it through embedded conduits that kept the weapon balanced even when the air thickened with hostile pressure. The staff did not carve through armor or break formations. Instead, it created an anchored field around its bearer, reinforcing incantations, shaping projections, and steadying the invisible threads that bound multiple actions into a single coherent movement. In dense fighting, it allowed the user to stand against currents of force that would have shattered lesser weapons, turning the staff into a quiet fulcrum of control around which the chaos of the field bent slightly, almost imperceptibly, but always in favor of the one who held it. Yet, even with a stabilizing core like the staff, there were circumstances where subtlety outweighed reach, where a strike needed to slip into the narrowest openings of armor or intent. And from such conditions, the Force dagger took shape as a compact extension of focused will. Its short blade condensed psychic energy into a tight, almost pressurized line, allowing it to bypass resistance rather than confront it. In the crush of close quarters, where movement was restricted and reactions measured in fragments of breath, the dagger operated with precision that did not depend on sweeping motion. It pierced the seams of armored joints, the weak points hidden under reinforced layers, and the psychological effect of its presence often mattered as much as the wound it delivered, for enemies sensed its pressure before the blade even reached them. But when the fighting shifted from cramped interiors to ordered formations moving as one, reach once again became indispensable, and the Force pike emerged as the disciplined answer to battles fought along rigid lines. Its elongated frame carried psychic current in a straight, concentrated channel, turning the weapon into a stabilizing beam that held both distance and direction with remarkable precision. The pike allowed its wielder to project force beyond arm's length, disrupting advances before they could close in, its energized tip creating a distortion that unsettled approaching foes and widened the space between ranks. In the synchronized push of disciplined units, it served as both spear and barrier, shaping the battlefield, not through brutality, but through the unwavering line it imposed on those who dared cross it. From the discipline of the pike grew the need for a weapon that could shift between reach and decisive close impact without sacrificing the psychic tension running through its core. And thus, the Force halberd emerged as a hybrid shaped for fluid battlefields. Its dual nature allowed the wielder to alternate between cutting arcs and piercing thrusts, each motion reinforced by currents that traveled along its extended spine and gathered at the bladed head. The halberd's form let it manipulate the rhythm of an engagement, slowing an enemy's advance with the broad weight of its strike, then narrowing the confrontation with a sudden linear thrust that pierced through armor weakened by psychic vibration. In formations, its presence altered the density of the line, granting fighters the ability to respond to shifting pressures without breaking cohesion. The energy running through it produced a faint, steady hum that marked its readiness, a resonance that shaped the immediate air into a tense boundary few opponents dared to cross, making the weapon as much a psychological anchor as a physical instrument. As battles intensified and the need for overwhelming disruption grew, some warriors required a tool that could translate psychic will into a single, crushing point of impact. And from this demand, the Force hammer took its unmistakable form. Unlike blades that parted resistance or staves that redirected pressure, the hammer gathered power into a compact, volatile core housed within its heavy head, releasing it in a brief but devastating pulse at the moment of contact. Armor did not merely crack beneath it. The force penetrated through layers, shattering internal structures and destabilizing the very stance of those who tried to withstand it. The psychic surge traveled outward in a short wave, momentarily disorienting nearby foes and fracturing the cohesion of tightly packed formations. Despite its mass, the weapon carried a peculiar balance, as if the energy within lightened the burden until the instant of a strike, when its full weight reasserted itself with uncompromising finality. This made the hammer a tool not only of destruction, but of battlefield influence, shaping the momentum of clashes by forcing opponents to retreat, regroup, or falter under its oppressive advance. But not every confrontation demanded the overwhelming finality of a hammer. There were battles shaped by speed, by the need to slip between shifting angles and exploit the smallest breaks in an opponent's guard. And from this fluid urgency, the force blade emerged as a lighter, more agile channel for directed power. Its construction focused the psychic current into a narrower edge, sharpening not only the metal, but the very intention behind each motion. The blade moved with minimal resistance, as though the energy within thinned the air around it, letting the wielder adjust trajectories mid-swing and maintain pressure through rapid sequences of strikes. In close engagements, it carved paths through armor softened by its vibrational field. But its true strength lay in the uninterrupted flow of movement it allowed, a continuity that turned combat into a controlled sequence rather than a contest of strength. The blade guided its wielder as much as it responded to them, forming a rhythm that unsettled opponents who found themselves facing a weapon whose edge arrived a fraction of a moment before their reactions could fully form. Yet, even among swift instruments of will, there were warriors who shaped their combat around curved trajectories and sudden reversals, and for them, the Force scimitar emerged as a blade that carried momentum not in straight lines, but in arcs of controlled acceleration. Its design allowed psychic energy to pool along the inner curve, creating a subtle pull that guided each swing into a tightening spiral, turning motion itself into an accumulating force. When wielded with precision, the scimitar did not simply slice through armor. It unbalanced the opponent by redirecting the flow of impact, bending the confrontation toward the wielder's advantage. The weapon thrived in the shifting space between attack and counterattack, where rapid changes of direction could decide the outcome before the enemy understood the pattern forming around them. In skilled hands, the scimitar became an expression of fluid dominance, its presence altering the pace of battle and drawing adversaries into a rhythm that was never theirs to control. And where curved steel shaped momentum into spirals, there remained a final need for a weapon that did not rely on edges at all, a tool that turned distance into a shifting field of control. And from that boundary between reach and restraint, the Force whip took form as the most unbound expression of psychic channeling. Its flexible lattice conducted energy along its entire length, allowing it to snap through air with a pressure that bent space a fraction before the strike landed, tracing lines that opponents struggled to predict. The whip did not behave like metal, but like intention, woven into motion, able to coil around limbs, disrupt formations, or carve sudden paths through clustered resistance. Its wielder shaped the battlefield through patterns rather than blows, directing currents of force that pushed enemies away or drew them into vulnerable angles, its presence stretching the engagement outward into a tense, shifting perimeter. And when the motion finally slowed, the weapon settled with a quiet resonance, as if absorbing what remained of the conflict back into the stillness from which it was drawn, leaving the air marked by the faint echo of power passing from motion into rest.